Kumuto Manzanilla. PNM. 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 A very good night and thank you to our chair lady, Mrs. Laurel Lizama Leasing, who has been doing an exceptional job chairing the proceedings. Take a bow. Trained by the PNM, grew up in the PNM and ready for service in the PNM and delivering that service with aplomb. And of course, you all met Short Man tonight, right? Sangre Grande, you're holding the best, right? Right, you held them and now you let them loose. Let it loose. Roger and Ronnie. And both men are the best available to the people of Trinidad and Tobago for the two eastern constituencies. Mr. Ronnie Lochan, his name is synonymous with PNM service in this part of the country. And he is carrying the flag that his family carried for many decades. And tonight, as leader of the PNM, I'm proud to support this well-prepared young man, professional young man, committed to public service, to serve the people in an area where the PNM had been in Parliament as its representative for quite a while. We also haven't been there for a little while. But I've got a good feeling about Kumuto Manzanilla in 2020. Mr. Ronnie Lochan for Kumuto Manzanilla. Long family tradition of service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago, particularly here in the Kumuto Manzanilla area. And of course, raised, bred, trained, prepared, presented here in Sangre Grande. He fought his way through to this position. You sent in a lot of people to be considered for screening. This is one of the more exercising screening that we've had because Sangre Grande sent us so many choices. And tonight I want to acknowledge my former parliamentary colleague. Again, coming out of a tradition of service. Her mother was a councillor for a long time. She served, and now she's giving way to Roger Monroe and recognize Mrs. Jennings Smith. So come Monday, the names will change, but the commitment and the party will remain PNM, 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 and Roger Monroe will step into that responsibility. Roger Monroe for Toko Sangre Grande. And I want to acknowledge my former parliamentary and cabinet colleague coming out of Arima, Her Excellency Penelope Beckles for Arima. Very experienced, always stable, always steady, and has been in public service for as long as I can remember. PNM again. And of course, leading the group here in the East and running our national campaign, not for the first time. Another Sangre Grande product. A man who said Sangre Grande is still the best place after Tobago. And I agree with him. Because Tobago is very close to Sangre Grande. So I think it's all one community, Tobago and Sangre Grande. What's 27 miles of ocean? So acknowledge our campaign manager, your very own, Senator Rohan Sinanan, Minister of Works and Transport of Trinidad and Tobago. He joined the cabinet and hit the ground running and hasn't stopped since. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is the last of these meetings that we have had. I can tell you, if I must admit it, I'm a little bit tired, but it has been quite a journey. And we've come out here every night because you know how we used to do it before when things were normal, but these are not normal times. We have to adapt our campaign to meet the population because we wanted to ensure that nobody in this country could reasonably well say and truthfully say that an election campaign has taken place and the people were not seized and made aware of the issues and the options available. We have done that in this campaign. We let you know what the options are, and we let you know what the issues are, and we let you know what the differences and similarities are. Every night on a PNM platform for the last month, a minister of government has come to the fore and has told this country in a very understandable and digestible synopsis what has been going on, what is going on, and what is to go on in the portfolio that they've held. We've had discourses from the Minister of Agriculture, from the Minister of Finance, from the Attorney General, from the Minister of Works, and every night as head of the team as Prime Minister, I commit to you this team, this is the best team in 2020 going forward. And the reason why we are doing this is not because we can fill this hall 4 times as we normally would do. As you know in Sangre, Grande, when we come here, we fill this place out into the streets. But tonight we're sitting here, a couple dozen of us in this room spaced out, with the masks over our faces, attempting to preserve our health and our very lives, because we are campaigning in 2020 when an election is due during a pandemic, something that hasn't happened in the world since 1918. But fortunately, we are in a much better position today than they were in 1918 because we understand what was killing them then and why they were killing themselves. It's a virus that is amongst the population of human beings, and we have to ensure that the virus doesn't jump from one person to another. The virus can't walk around. If you leave it on a surface and somebody else touches it, then there's a chance of it moving. If you have it and you touch your face, from your hand you put it into your own body. These are the simplicities. But the consequences can be grievous if you don't understand or don't do these simple things. And that's why I'm so pleased to see this disciplined PNM would have gone through an election campaign doing what the doctors say we should do. And largely, not 100%, largely being very disciplined, wearing our masks, keeping our distances, and ensuring that we stay sanitized, clean, and healthy. That's what is required. Your government has had to intervene to do governmental things, things that we had not planned for, but were required to be done. It's like you're a parent. You plan, you keep a little savings in the bank, you spend some on food, you spend a little on holiday, and you're comfortable. And then somebody falls out a mango tree and breaks a hand or breaks a back, or somebody gets ill. All the planning gone out through the window. You have to spend whatever money you have on the child or on the uncle or whoever it is because you didn't plan for that. But it has come to you and you have to respond. That's what COVID has done to us. But let's go back a little bit. The meeting I remember most in 2015 was that night in the rain here in Sangre Grande. When we came out there in our thousands, that I stood before you as the opposition leader and I said to you that it doesn't matter what the situation is in the country going forward, but with respect to development, it is my view and the view of the PNM that I lead, that a child born in Sangre Grande would have the same opportunity as one born in St. James or in Scarborough or in San Fernando. And we are not going to allow, because of where you're born or where you're growing up, that you are denied the opportunity to develop to your fullest potential. And therefore, since you didn't have certain infrastructural developments in Sangre Grande and the eastern seaboard of the country, under my government, we will bring it to you and bring you into the country's mainstream. We will bring it, we'll bring you into the country's mainstream. And anywhere in the world you go, if there is a population that is separated from the mainstream, you have to bring them either waterways, riverways, or seaways, or roads. Roads in particular link people. If there are no proper road connections between communities, then you cannot interact in the way you could, and one end would develop more than the other, and you will be where they say behind God back. And I said that Sangre Grande would never be behind God back if the PNM has another chance in government as we have now. But it was a time of reducing revenues. We were here having that meeting. You stood in the rain and listened to me, and I told you, give me the opportunity to control the cabinet and the government's decisions. Send me the candidate from Sangre Grande, give us enough seats to form the government, and I will ensure that you're not left behind. And Sangre Grande, you gave us an overwhelming victory and put Sangre Grande in the column of the PNM and in government. And in keeping With that commitment I made to all the people of Sangre Grande, especially the young people and the children who want a future in this country, we immediately embarked upon improving the road network that was lying on a desk somewhere in the Ministry of Works with some humongous amount of cost attached to it. That highway we're building there now, you know what the price of it was supposed to be? It's supposed to be over $1 billion, $1.2 billion. That was the price that was being attached to that work. $1.2 billion. 1.8, I'm corrected by the Minister of Works, $1.8 billion. And it was a foreign contractor that was in line to get it because local contractors could not bond a project of that size. We went out to tender. One of the first things this government did was to determine that the highway will be built as I promised you. We went out to tender, and what was the tender price? 400. Yeah, from 120 million per kilometer to 80 million per kilometer. From $40 million per kilometer less, you know. But we committed to build it. There were those in comfortable areas in the country, those who were leaving you behind because, you know, the mathematics will show you that a race that is going on between a fast horse and a donkey, the longer the race goes on, the further apart they get. Those who were leaving you further and further behind were objecting to the fact that the government was going to build a highway to Sangre Grande. And I tell them to put that where the monkey put the nuts, because Sangre Grande people voted for the PNM and told the PNM to build that road to Sangre Grande, and that highway will be built. So we got a contract price $40 million cheaper per kilometer. They took us to court. We had to go to court all the way to the Privy Council to get permission to build that road for you. But the PNM gave you a commitment, and if we had to go to Antarctica, we would have gone because we gave you a commitment and we intended to keep our promise to you. After 1 year, an additional millions wasted fighting dotishness in the courthouse, the court ruled that the government could proceed because it was the only piece of road that we know of in this time that had all the approvals. So there was no complaint that could have been reasonably defended in the court. And they lost the case, but we lost a year. Otherwise, you would have been driving on your highway now. COVID would have made the highway finished. We had a beautiful dry season that we couldn't do any work because comfortable people. The man who took that matter to court with the opposition backing and all those who were opposed to you, you know why he was taking your business to court? Because he didn't want the highway to pass through there because Guti does pass there. You know, up in Glencoe, he was offering prime forest land for sale in his private capacity. Unbeknownst to the people of Glencoe, he was selling land up there for development housing, but up here, coming up here and going to Tokwa and telling them they don't want no port and they don't need no road, as if you so dotish. You know? You know, in Jamaica, they say, have you, they still want you, no get. Eh? They have it, but telling you what you should not get. The PNM said you must get it, and you will get it, and you are getting it. So after 1 year of delay, the highway is being built, and unfortunately, COVID comes again, and just when we thought we had the back of it broken and you were just about to complete, we had to withdraw for the last 4 or 5 months. But it is going to be completed, and it is going to be completed under PNM government, because come Tuesday morning, you would have put back into office a PNM government. I've had the experience of interacting with the medical fraternity here in Sangre Grande, either at the level of the cabinet, giving them the resources, appointing the board and so on, or coming into the hospital itself, because I had family members who were in that hospital getting hospice care. And I saw the doctors and nurses at work inside there, and I'm asking myself, how could this be that in a country that was spending $63 billion a year, and for 5 years, the 5 largest budgets, and nobody could pay attention to the building of a hospital for the people of this part of the country? And I said to you in that rain that night that if you give me the opportunity to run this country, you will get your hospital. Sangre Grande, your hospital is under construction. And the only thing that links Toco, Montevideo, and Matlot to the rest of the country by way of Sangre Grande is a road. From Valencia Junction to Toco, the only thing that links you there is a road. And you know, we undertook to build that road. And somehow that is a problem for some people. And look at when we're doing it. When we came into office, we came in on September 9th. The national budget had to be completed and passed in the parliament by October 31st. So we had to prepare a budget, pass it, and get going. We did that. But that budget was not largely our doing. It was the work that was done by the public servants before the elections, which we had to just very quickly put in place. So we passed the budget. And immediately upon passing the budget, we realized the budget could not be funded. There was not enough money to fund the budget as passed in the parliament. I'm sure you all forgot what we did. I'm sure you forgot, because all of us forget so fast. After we passed the budget, we had to give instructions in the public service to cut the allocation by 7% across the board, because there was not enough money to pay that. You all forgot that? Immediately there were those who got up and said, oh, you give me. We did not have the money to service the budget as fast. So in the first year of this government, we had to cut the allocation by 7% across the board. And we gave the instructions not at the expense of the recurrent expenditure, meaning the jobs. Because we know if we send people home from the jobs they have, many of them would for quite some time not know where to get the next pay packet from, and children would not know where the next meal would be coming from. So all of us together will take a hit on it to ensure that all of us have something to eat and have an opportunity to keep. That was our primary responsibility. And at that time, I also told you that there is medicine to be taken. Not all tasty, some of it quite bitter. But we will prescribe our own medicine, and we will not go to the IMF for any relief, because that would be a situation far worse than the one that we can prescribe for ourselves. Today I can report to you here in Sangre Grande at the end of this campaign that we have managed this country's affairs in such a way that for the last 5 years we steered this country away from the lender of last resort in a very difficult period. But interestingly enough, it is during that kind of scenario, that kind of situation, that is when Sangre Grande is getting a hospital. When money was awash in this country, you didn't get it. It is that time that Sangre Grande is getting that highway to bring you in comfort and in safety to your community and linking you to the rest of the national economy. It is that time that you got your licensing office. And it's that time when, like everybody else in the country, whatever else the country had to offer in terms of the social service and the social safety net, that Sangre Grande was getting its fair share. And you have to ask yourself, how come this didn't happen before? How come? Priority. Money was being spent, but you were not a priority. You were never a priority. And that is why, if they need your vote on Monday, they have to try and buy out every fridge in town, every stove in town, every TV in town, and try and come and bribe you to vote for them, because they cannot come on their record of service to you. We come on service to you, and we know that your vote will be cast for a party and a government and a candidate that puts service before bribery and before corrupt practice. If there's anywhere in this country where the UNC should not get a single vote, it is Sangre Grande. Because when the country had money, they turned their backs on you. If you hear how they spent money when you didn't have a road and didn't have a hospital. I just told, it was a couple of nights ago, I was talking about helicopters. $35 million for a helicopter somebody brought in here under a deal that couldn't fly. $35 million. Another helicopter in America never came to Trinidad, but the country facing a legal claim that we can't defend for over $100 million. The AG spent about a year and a half trying to negotiate until we end up settling it for millions of dollars. We had $16 billion in the NGC where you are a part owner because every man, woman, and child is a shareholder in the National Gas Company. There was $16 billion in their account, in their savings account. When the USC came into office, they spent every cent. You didn't get a hospital then. You didn't get a road then. Nobody was promising a road to Toko and a port to Toko because as far as they're concerned, you're all out in the bush, and who in the bush, stay in the bush with the animals out there. While they tip it out in town. And coming to tell you now about they have UNC candidate who can identify themselves wherever they are. But I tell you, politics is about interests. And if you don't elect people who look out for your interests, then what you get, you take. You were never part of the equation. So tonight, all I can say to Sangre Grande, the work is ongoing. The work is ongoing. In the city of Port of Spain, in 2010, those of you who are paying attention to the news in 2010 would have seen a piece of the roof of President House collapsed. Right? This is not in Sangre Grande, this is in the city of Port of Spain, our capital city. Because wherever we are in this country, we are proud of our capital city. It represents us in the best form. The roof of the President House collapsed. I'm not talking about any school or community center. I'm talking about President House. Those people in the UNC spent the 5 largest budgets in the history of this country. And you know when they leave office in 2015, the collapsed roof was same place how they met it. That collapse took place during the election campaign. And after 5 years of splurge and spend, teeth to no end, they left it just so. Within a matter of a short period of time, in a difficult situation with money being scarce, and for a fraction of the cost that they were doing it for, if they had ever attempted to do it, by doing it honestly, through competitive tendering, we were able, this government was able to complete the repairs of President House. And today, every citizen could pass President House, look at it, or if you're fortunate to be having to go there for whatever reason, to be proud that that is the place of residence of the President of our Republic. Symbolically, it represents a restoration of pride in our people and our nation. Symbolically, it is. And it wasn't just the President's house, it was the Parliament. For years, our Parliament is probably one of the biggest buildings in the country. It must have been because it's a whole block, it's a whole city block, right? A street on all sides, east, west, north, and south, and the middle is the Parliament. A very large building. For years, that building was under construction, reconstruction. And they spend money on it, they spend money on it, they spend money. They do all kind of thing on it, including giving the roof to a man who never fix a foul cube roof. And his address is like pole number 19, Ohio, Kunupe, or something like that. And when we came into office, we met them about awarding a contract for $800 and something million to finish that work whenever it was going to be finished. We took it over and we broke up the contract into 17 pieces and tendered every single one and put different contractors in and managed by UDCOT. Our Parliament has been completed and is now in use. And once again, national pride returns to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Our Parliament is home. You think anybody who abandoned the President's house, abandoned the Parliament, would come and fix for you here in Sangre Grande the old post office so that it can be a sense of pride to the people of Sangre Grande. Only the PNM will do that, and the PNM will do it, and the PNM will do it, and you will have that old post office restored. As a symbol of the resurgence of Sangre Grande. And Sangre Grande, you used to be the agricultural market town of the East. They interfered with the cocoa industry, close off the cocoa board, create something up to now, I'm not even sure what they have created, I must admit. But the end result of that is I see farmers, the few farmers we have in cocoa left, complaining that they can't sell their cocoa, while cocoa is required and in short supply, our high value cocoa. But let me tell you what we're going to be doing about cocoa in this part of Sangre Grande. We're going back to production of cocoa. Cocoa is a crop that those who had planted cocoa before at the small farmer level carried the crop on their shoulder for a while, because it takes a few years for cocoa trees to be planted, to grow, and to begin to fruit. It takes a few years. What happens to a farmer who decides, and I keep hearing about cocoa is a good thing to produce. Let's take a young man here in Sangre Grande, or for that matter, a young woman here in Sangre Grande. I keep hearing that cocoa production is a good thing. But where do I start if I go out there, even if I have a piece of family land or get a piece of state land, and I go there and start to plant cocoa plants if they are available, and then they have to be protected and they have to grow? What sustains me as an individual during that period of 4 to 5 years when I am doing this husbandry for this crop, waiting for the first fruits? How am I sustained? The answer is you won't be. So the most you can do is think about doing it, and it will never be done. Well, we, in this government, now that we finished our first term, in our second term, we have already identified parcels of lands in this part of the country which the government will intervene to help and to sustain those who want to farm, and will identify you. We will put you on land. We will sustain you as long as you are in fact growing that crop, because we know 5 years down the road, those that you grow will fruit, and then we will have pods of cocoa to pick and cocoa beans to sell. Otherwise, it will never happen. It will just be old talk. We're spending money on other things which are less important, and a few years later that money disappears as if it was never spent. But if we spend some of that money on preparing land, in putting you in a housing program which has just won an international award, and it's an aided self-help program that we have done in Moruga. It's no mansion, it's a decent little family house. And those little family homesteads, the government will stand with you here in the eastern counties and put some of them out there. And if we take one young man or one young woman or 20 of them or 200 of them, we will be increasing national production in an area where the production is needed, and we do something positive. Coming out of the COVID experience, one of the things that we have done is to create a roadmap to direct us as to what direction we need to go in. We looked at all our circumstance in the threat of COVID, and we've created that roadmap. In that roadmap, one of the recommendations which this government has accepted is that the budget that we are going to put in place next month, that budget will contain an additional $500 million for agricultural initiatives. And one of them, I hear our opponents saying that we have $700 million in the last budget for agriculture, and now we're offering $500 million, so the PNM intend to reduce the expenditure on agriculture. It's not because they don't understand it, it's because they make a career of lying to you. There is a $700 million for what is going on right now. The Roadmap Committee looked at what we need to do in addition to what is going on now and said to us, let us spend an additional $500 million. So 700 plus 500 is 1.2 billion. That's what we're doing. And that 500 is going to be spent on support in a variety of ways. One of those ways is to find suitable agricultural land here in the eastern part of the country where the soil is good, where the condition is good. Identify those lands for cocoa production, for restoration where there's restoration to be done. But more than that, we will have training programs for specific people who want to farm in cocoa. Because farming is not something you tell somebody to go and do, or you send them to go and do it. Farmers have to want to be farmers. And it requires patience, because plants have to grow, animals have to be sustained. Patience is the lifeblood of farming. That's why it's called husbandry. You have to take care of what you're looking after. You put a seed in the ground and walk away. You have to tend it when it germinates. You have to protect it. And when it grows, sometimes it takes a long time, depending on the crop. Sometimes it goes faster. But cocoa is a crop that we need to have more acreage in the country. And one of the things we are committing to with government support is a greater acreage of cocoa. But of course, we can't plant cocoa without cocoa plants. We have to ensure that there's planting material available. We will ensure in the first year or two that we put some of that money in the initiative to increase the amount of cocoa. They are down the south coast. Both of you experiencing the same thing, being left behind, but you have resources that are underutilized. We ended up assessing the situation. Even in this difficult period of financial challenge, we built in Maruga a $90 million agro-processing plant that will be the center of agricultural expansion and agricultural production in the whole of the South Coast, from Princeton all the way down to Laloon. That's what we have done. Not promising, no, we've done it, and done it during this period when money is scarce. That wasn't done when money was available and there were others in office lining their pocket. Today, the judge ruled, and for once, the taxpayer got a break in this country. Up until today, whenever we speak about the way they misspent your money, created avenues to thief it and all kinds of things, I need not go into the details anymore because you know it, you've heard it before. But they went to the court and tell the court that the state's attempt to prosecute them must go the way of the airport inquiry, where it matters not what the evidence says. To hell with the evidence, throw out the case. And the judge was adjudicating on their request. Last week, they wrote the judge and tell the judge, don't give us the judgment before election. Now, I never know courthouse decisions had to be done in the context of who washing clothes outside and who going in taxi to town. I didn't know that. That precedent, if it was set, you know what it would have meant? If you are sufficiently bold-faced, you could have gone to court. Let's take any case. Let's take a divorce case. So you could have gone to court in a divorce case, and there's a family home. And divorce is usually, let's say a divorce where the wife is pressing for her separation and all they have in the family is a house. And the judge heard all the evidence and the complaints and so on, and he is to rule on what is to happen with the house as part of the decision to be had. But then somehow the husband could tell the judge, hold that decision, don't give me yet, don't give us that decision yet. My intention is to sell the house. After I sell the house, you could rule. And of course he sells the house and dispenses with the money. And then the judge ruled, what are your assets? You have nothing. You have no house. Because the house was sold. Because he needed time to sell the house. I'm just giving you an example of how ridiculous that development could be as a precedent in our jurisprudence. So they go and tell the judge. But of course the judge didn't listen. Because we were not listening either. Because before, all of you would have heard them saying, the PNM only saying, talking about corruption, but nothing is happening. They can't find nobody to prosecute. You know, while they were saying that, their names were in the documents as read out today in the courthouse, where prosecution was going on in the courthouse. And while that is going on, those people watching us in our faces and know that we know, because we are the executive, we know what EMBD is telling us and what EMBD has done. The Minister of Finance had to fund the legal fees for EMBD because EMBD has no revenue of any consequence. Lawyers are expensive. But they never believed that a government in this country would have gone after white-collar crime. So they were saying to you, hoping that it turns out that way, that nothing happening, but you would have heard me say, fear not, the wheels of justice turn slowly, but they do turn. Today it turned a little bit because the judge threw out the case and said, you have a case to answer. You have cases to answer. We don't know who is guilty or otherwise because no, you are innocent until proven guilty, but you have a case to answer. Up to now, the airport conspirators, those who involved in the airport scandal, have not been able to answer their cases. They have been made not to answer that matter. The Americans who were with them in that airport scandal have answered in the American courts, have gone to jail, they have come out, they have been waiting for the Trinidadians to be tried. They have never been brought before the court to answer. They've been playing in the court. And that letter to the judge to hold back the decision is an affront to our effort to get justice for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Today, justice has begun to be served. The judge said, you have a case to answer. It is for the state's agency to make the case. And the judge today would have outlined to you for the first time what is before the court. But what amazes me is that people that you hire to work for you could watch you in your face, knowing that that is going on, and talking about their unblemished record. My unblemished record. Unblemished record. Go tell that to the judge. But I tell you this so you could understand that your money could be spent in a variety of ways. It could be spent on you, for you, or it could be spent about you. It could be spent to no benefit for you. It's your money. What has happened in the last 5 years is that the money we borrowed and spent been spent on you, for you. The money we collected from government revenues that came in has been spent on you, for you. And I am pleased to tell you here in Sangre Grande tonight that I've taken my government through 5 years of difficulty, 5 years of all kinds of situations that were challenging. But I have lost not a single minister to public opinion or private action or police action for dishonesty during the time that I was Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Not one. And you have to pay attention to that, because it is now becoming a habit that people begin to believe that once you get office, it is about you and for you. When you send Roger as a PNM MP to the parliament, it's not about him. He's there to serve you. And as long as I or the PNM have anything to do with it, that you can put to the bank. And when you send Ronnie Lochan to the parliament, it's not about him. He's a servant of the people. That is our approach to public service. And that is a big difference to those who believe that once they get office, they have been anointed to millionaire and billionaire status. We are quite happy to sleep confidently knowing that if we see any blue light coming up our street, is the police taking a shortcut or they're coming to make a all-fours line? That's what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, as we talk about our young people, we have to train them. Because if we don't train them, others will. And what used to be passing for training has fallen away. There are too many people, especially young people, who really don't know where the next day should be spent, far less the next year. Many of them don't know what a day's work is, or what is meant by waking up in the morning, getting dressed, getting a taxi or the bus, going someplace, working there, and waiting for a fortnight end or the end of the month to be paid. They don't know that. They are not prepared to take part in that, some of them. There are too many of our young people who believe that life, the hardest thing they could do in life is to turn a motor car steering wheel or mash the X. And worse, there are others who believe that the hardest thing to do is to hold a gun and pull a trigger and make a good living doing that. We have to go back to basics. And that is why one of the things that we will do in this area, in combination between La Joqueta and Sangre, Grande and Valencia, is to build in this area a major youth camp for youth development. And in that youth camp would be young people being trained out here where there's land to be farmed, in agriculture, and other aspects of training that will benefit the national community. We will make that investment. And the same way we told you we'll build a highway, and we're building it. We told you we'll build a hospital, and we're building it. I tell you tonight, we're going to build that major youth camp for our youth from all the way from Marima, all the way to Sangre and Toko, and you could take that to the bank once you vote right on Monday. Because things don't happen by accident. They don't happen by accident. My opponent, who was a former prime minister, wouldn't go to work when the day come. Never goes to work in the morning. One of our ministers, who is now the commissioner of police, told the country she takes 5-day weekends. You don't want a prime minister under this situation taking 5-day weekends. I go to bed at night at 2 o'clock in the morning, and 2 days a week I get up at 5 o'clock after that. Because I work night and day. A lot of what I would like to be doing now in relaxation, I can't do if you let me. But the bottom line is, you need focused and committed people. If ever you needed a serious government in office, now is the time. Could you imagine this election is taking place in the middle of a pandemic? In the United States alone, about 150,000 people have died. Some of them are our own people. I know a family in Trinidad and Tobago where a mother and a sister passed in that. Mother died, sister died, and they couldn't even go to the funeral because the world is locked down. You can't get a ticket or a plane to take you to America. Your mother died, your sister died, you can't go to the funeral. That's going on right now. The closest part of America to us is Florida. Florida is the hardest hit part now at this point in time in America. America has about 5 million people who are already infected, and that is only those who have been tested and proven to be positive. It's not talking about the other tens of millions who have not been tested and found to be carrying it. We have had to close our borders to the United States. How many of you have ever envisioned that that could happen? But we have had here in Trinidad and Tobago to leave our jobs, leave our schools, leave our factories and go home and stay home because there was a virus that threatens our lives. We have had to close our schools. Our children have not been to school since February. We tried to bring back only a small portion of them, 19,000 of them. We had to take them back out fast because the virus is still threatening them. And while that is the case, people who want office and who believe that nothing that goes on in this country they could support, nothing. I ask you tonight, you tell me one thing that could or is going on in this country that the UNC doesn't oppose. Tell me. Anybody who know one thing that's going on in this country for the benefit of the people of Trinidad and Tobago that the UNC support, put up your hand and tell me. And we are in the middle of a pandemic where if it gets away from us, we may have to go into lockdown again. If it gets away from us, we are working very hard to prevent that from happening. But if it comes to pass that we got to a situation where the only response that we know that works is to withdraw, what do? And you want to tell me, the people who tell you that the way they're going to manage this exercise, first thing was a state of emergency. That sounds serious, eh? That sounds, man, in charge. What does a state of emergency do? All it does is strip you of your rights under the Constitution and give more power to the police. That's all it does. Sometimes you need that. But to fight a virus, what do you need that for? Especially when the response is largely something for you to do. You want police to get more power to wash your face, to wash your hand? You want to give police more power to tell you to wear a mask? You want to give police more power to tell you that you mustn't hug up anybody? No, come on. We don't shake hands anymore because we've discovered that in shaking hands, the virus could be taken from one person to another. So you don't shake hands. Use the elbow bunks. Don't go out and congregate, because if you congregate and stay too close to a person who is infected, and sometimes the most dangerous person is the most healthy looking person who is carrying the virus isn't making them sick, but they are spreading the virus invisibly. Don't close the border. Don't close the border. People want to come home to vote. To vote. Yeah. You know, Sparrow of a Caliph, so called wanted dead or alive. Right? Like them. Come home to vote. Come home to vote. As if that is the most important thing in life. The most important thing is to stay alive. The most important thing is to stay alive. And of course, there is no cure for COVID-19. No cure. Except in Trinidad. Expose you to the rampaging virus and then tell you, because they're drinking puncheon and lime good for you. Them live on punch and rum, right? But it's not a cure for COVID. And a drug that has been discredited in the United States by the Center for Disease Control. The drug was highlighted by the WHO saying, don't use it. But in Trinidad and Tobago, our opponents are telling you, use hydroxychloroquine because some president says so. You think on the 11th of August, you put them in office, that they will step up to make the decisions to protect your lives and your family's life and this country's livelihood? You think so? So when we say close the bars, shut all the bars down and go out of bars for a while, they were the opponents to that. They opposed the government's decision to shut bars. We know when we shut bars down that thousands of persons will lose jobs, but we had to do that to keep you alive. Otherwise, this country would have had its COVID crisis a long, long time ago. But when you are in government, you can't play with important decisions because the consequences could be grave, and you have to be able to face the consequences. I've told my colleagues in the cabinet, you are in office. My grandfather always taught me, before he gave me a good licking, when you're in charge, if it's for one day, be in charge. Otherwise, you'd let the whole country down. And you do what is right for the people. Do what is right by the people and be prepared to stand the consequences. And come Monday, the government that I have led and the people I brought in as candidates on this occasion, we are prepared to stand the consequences as determined by you. And the consequences are about looking after your health in this world where we rank #1 for preparing to fight this virus. I heard one of the fool ads saying to you that you should vote for them because the government did say that they have no COVID, and now you're having COVID cases in the country. The government lied to you. They spent the whole career trying to make me a liar, and they have failed miserably. I never told you COVID wouldn't come here. If we didn't expect COVID to come and be among us, why did we build a parallel health system? Why did we keep hundreds of hospital spaces and quarantine spaces available? It is because we expect that it is quite likely, possible, and even to be expected any time that we could end up in a situation where the virus is amongst us. What we said to you, that the best response and the only response is to be able to treat with and deal with the cases coming to us and never have it overcome our health system. As long as it does not overcome the health system of the country, then we are in a good place and a good position. It is where the numbers have overcome the health system that you now have a crisis on your hands. And what they were asking us to do was to open the borders, increase the numbers of inflow from very heavily infected areas. And that would have guaranteed us a situation where the migrants coming in would have given us the best chance to have infections overcome our health system. That is the advice we are getting from them. So the big ad is that the Prime Minister lied to you because we have COVID infections starting up again. All over the world, they tell you, when you open up, I told you here in the country, it was more difficult and I was even more nervous authorizing the reopening than I was in shutting the country down. Because I always knew, from what little we knew of the virus, that after you begin to open up the economy, you're taking a gamble with the risk that you are taking. Some countries with far more resources than we have, they've opened up and have to shut back down immediately. Some thought that they had beaten it and could open and stay. When the numbers start to grow, they have to shut down. But in Trinidad and Tobago, you have a full opposition telling you the Prime Minister bring the virus and he lied to you. I can't take it when they insult your intelligence like that, and you must take note. You must take note. We imagine we have lived, if we've done nothing in this country of great value to the people in Trinidad and Tobago, we as a multiracial, multi-ethnic, multi-religious country, we pride ourselves in all of us living in this little space and living together in harmony. But an election comes around, and the UNC has to put ads on the radio and television or wherever they put them. Have you all seen those ads from the UNC? Using black people in the most disgusting and disgraceful way. But I will tell you something, don't be surprised. I first noticed Kamla Prasad Bisesa and her racial position when there was a by-election in Chaguanas West. Chaguanas West is the strongest UNC seat in the country, but there was a by-election there. And the PNM, we pride ourselves, not in winning every election and every seat, but in ensuring that in every election, in every seat, anywhere in this country, there's always a PNM candidate. So when that by-election came up in Chaguanas West, when Jack Warner resigned and came back to fight the seat as the ILP, the PNM had to turn up and take part in the election. We had this bright young man, a fellow called Avinar Singh, as our candidate. Avinar Singh is a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. He just happened to be of East Indian ancestry, and he lives over there in Chaguanas West, and he chose the PNM under our constitution. He was free to associate with any political party that he wanted to. Kamla Prasad Bisesa was Prime Minister at the time. You know what her reaction to that was? She went down there in Chaguanas and telling the people of Chaguanas, in a seat that she didn't have to go to win, because it was a foregone conclusion that they would have won it. She went down there, and her big issue was that the PNM has taken one of our own as their candidate. Who is the one of our own? And that was the first time I observed that she is having a propensity to use race in her politics. We took issue with that, and then later on, she's a opposition leader. Somebody talk about they are 1% of the country and they're doing so well as 1% and label themselves 1%ers. They haven't been expelled from the group yet, but I understand what they intend to be. But the bottom line is, here is the leader of the opposition, former Prime Minister, latch on to this 1% story, which everybody knows refers to the Syrian and Lebanese community, and beating it like a drum every day. And then she labels the Prime Minister as an Oreo, meaning I black outside and a white inside. Right? This is the conversation of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. Prime Minister what? Back to be Prime Minister again. So she intended all along to use race, dog whistle, and racial epithets as part of her political armory. So today, she reached now to be humiliating black people in this country by picking up destitute-looking black people and portraying them in the worst possible way in a political advertisement. Tonight, I want to say to Ms. Kamla Prasad Bisesa and the UNC, I'm a proud black man in this country, and you have offended me. And you have insulted all black people in this country by that caricature in your advertisement. And I know where that came from, you know. That came from the same place when the country had a crime problem and people were killed in Arima. And instead of the government buckling down and confronting the criminals, you know what they did? Well, crime and criminality is black people behavior, and they'll go and pick up 8,000 of them and jail them without evidence. That is where that advertisement came from. That is how they see us. That's how they think about us, and we reject it. And if you want to lead this country, you must apologize for that caricature that you've put there in your advertisement. It's not only black people in this country that can produce a hungry little child. It's not only black people in this country that are at the mercy of others. And Kamla Prasad Bisesa and your UNC friends, I know what the yellow bananas mean. It's monkey illustrated banana. All over the world, footballers walk off the field when they start to make monkey chants. But in the UNC advertisement, black people hungry in Trinidad and Tobago, and you feed the monkeys banana. You could go to hell with that. We are better than that in Trinidad and Tobago. This is a country. If the PNM has one legacy that we're going to defend to their death, is that we have encouraged interracial solidarity in this country, and we will not allow Kamla Prasad Bisesa and her minions to threaten it, because we are better together and stronger in diversity. I demand that those ads be removed. Sangre Grande, take up your bed and walk with the PNM. Your prosperity lies in the PNM victory. I thank you for your support in 2015. We never wavered our gaze from the commitment we made to you. And now more than ever, I'm more committed to you, the people of Sangre Grande. A young girl born in Sangre Grande, a young boy born in Sangre Grande, going to school in Sangre Grande, an unemployed man or woman in Sangre Grande. You must know that if the PNM is in office, you have hope, and we all have boundless faith in our destiny. I thank you for your support. I thank all of you. As I close the PNM campaign tonight, I thank all the people of Trinidad and Tobago for the opportunity that you have given me to run the country's affairs for the 5 years. I thank you for the support you've given me in those difficult times, because they were always difficult, but I always knew that if I did what was right as I intended to do, that I have your support. And if it did not initially appear to be the best thing, as the days and weeks and months go by, you realize that what the PNM was doing under my leadership was best for the country. As we go to the end of this campaign, I would be honored to be offered an opportunity to continue to serve you. And we give you service as only the PNM can. Come out and vote. The election is important. Monday is election day. Come out and vote for Ronnie Lochan in Komuto Manzanilla. Come out and vote for Penny Beckles in Arima. Come out and vote for Roger Monroe all the way up to Matlot from Sangre Grande and Valencia. And I did not present the candidate for Diego Martin West. Come out in Diego Martin West and vote for yours truly. And everywhere there's a polling booth, you will see a PNM candidate there, and the symbol is the Balize. And this is the PNM of 1956. We built this country, and we will build Toko, Sangre Grande, Komuto, and Manzanilla, and the rest of the country. We're not leaving anybody behind. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your support. On Monday night, I want to hear a shout from Sangre Grande early in the proceedings. Early in the proceedings, I want to hear that shout from Sangre Grande. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM. Great is the PNM, and we shall prevail.
Hey, 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 hey. Say all will be fine. Look, we made the right choice every time. Still a job to be done.